Cuckoo! This is so much fun. Oh, wait a second. That would have been a nice echo with like 30 seconds delay. Um, had my preview audio thingy on. Shall we dive straight into things? Right, here. Starting soon. Should I put this in the corner so it whoosh? And, ooh, it's still running. It's still running. We still have a fake background. So before a little break, which was good for lunch, I was starving. We were fixing the background, right? And the the scaling and everything and the movement is all good, but we are still in single texture mode, and that's what we were about to change. And I have some ideas around it. I have some ideas for the problems we need to fix with it. But we won't do that right now. Right now we just do that one thing, right? So, oops. So where did we stop? We stopped somewhere here as, okay, slow down. Where you can set a texture for a second channel, right? And our problem is in the material, technically that should be reflected in the sort key. And to be honest, I think we have space for a second channel or third channel. But right now we don't need that, so let's just say out of scope for now. Reflect second and reflect channel 1 and following textures in material key. Right, so we still have to do that, but we don't do that today. So back to the renderer. So we can set it and we can unset it, but we still need to do the switching, right? So in this case, we probably need a switch. And in this case, we probably need a switch too, right? And actually, let me check something. 2200 is in 4 hours, so let's add a timer for 4 hours. Yeah. Oh, thank you for not cooperating, Red Hot Timer. The color is just too aggressive. Well, let's make it fishy. Oh, sorry. It's 3 hours. It's actually 3 hours. But 3 hours is still plenty, right? So I don't like the plop it does when resizing. Otherwise it's. Let's aim for 3 hours. That's so much. I mean, all we want to do today is the second channel for the scatterbrain. This second channel for the textures, right? So when we set it, we need to switch the active material, and this case basically is user error. So now all we have to do is teach this switch active camera, active material that there might be. So this will not switch the material based on the active secondary texture. So, So I think we need to pass a vector here. Well, no. What we will do is... forget that. Okay, focus. This will actually have additional textures, which is a vector of texture references, right? And that is in order, and then we can... Oh, not sure I want to do that. Maybe you could just give it a vector of textures instead. You could just get it a vector of textures, and what it will need is... right? So how does a... can we do a vec? Can we do a map? Why does the phone always ring when... Yes, we should be able to map this. Okay. So what we actually want to do is textures.iter.map reference t.hardware ID, right? And that's texture hardware IDs to vector, right? And then here it's texture that s that does not belong there. So here we just pass in the hardware IDs. So the calculate key now gets a vector of hardware IDs. But then we're gonna split this up a bit, right? So let mute r equal 0 u128, right? And then at the end we just say r or this stuff, and then we say let mute shift equals 0. And then we say for I in 0. Let's say we do 4 max, right? We probably should have an assert there. So we just keep this. No, we say if let some texture hardware ID. Oh, I'm thinking loud today, ain't I? This is tough stuff. So this is texture hardware IDs dot get with the index. If we don't get one, well, we don't have to bake it in, but if we do, we bake it in. And this actually is the shift, right? and if you have 4. So we do have the space, right? I mean, we're wasting a bit of space. So let's say T1, T1, T2, T2, T3, T3, right? And then we have to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With multi-texture support. And then basically we have to push the panic here, and we can actually say if texture hardware IDs is larger than or equal to 4, well, 4, larger than 4, right? Then panic too many texture channels. And obviously we want the length there. Right? Righty. So obviously this shift here is now wrong, so this shift now needs to be, it used to be 16, it's 32 now, it's 48 now, it's 64 now. Oh, this is basically shift, right? Well, we have to increase the shift for every, we increase the shift. So this is, we shift by 816, right? So if we had one shift, and this is obviously shift plus 8, maybe it would be better to 8 plus shift. Maybe it would be better to manipulate the shift or have some shifted bit masker macro, but this is good enough, right? We'll see the mask anyway. So this will break in various places now, right? Because here we have a material new, right? And that, so we're gonna make this easy. So textures equals vec new, and then we say textures dot push a reference to self texture manager dot get active, right? And that's basically this here. So the one we passed in is the one that's in the first slot, right? And I'm gonna need this because we have a second material new here, which just does the same for the moment. Righty. And did we pass by reference? Yes, we. Oh, obviously this needs to be a vector of texture, a reference to a vector of texture references, right? Oh, I'm pretty sure I forgot one, at least one place. Unexpected token in line 224 in renderer. Because I forgot the semicolon here. Fair enough. So in line 47 here, we copy the texture name, right? Maybe we do something similar, right? What if we do a name to owned and then do a collect? Do we have a string join? Rust vec string join. Oh, we can just do a join over this result. So that's nice. So we can just do a join here, and let's join with a dash space. Did I just kill the braces again? This is the map, right? Nope. So we just take the combined name for everything. $11 errors. I'm pretty sure we expected struct texture found texture reference in material new. Found reference to reference. What? What? Oh, this is already a reference, right? So we took the reference of the reference, which wasn't the smartest way to do this. 364 unexpected token. Because I forgot this. And I need to do this, right? This is gonna be ugly, but I knew that, but it's the right thing to do. So calculate key. Calculate key needs the vector, right? So in 345 here we calculate the key, and basically we don't want the texture ID, we want the texture IDs, right? So well, let's assume we do this, and this is not everything, this is just the first texture. I just want to get it to work for one texture. So this is texture ID, so this is basically it's exactly what we do here, right? I hope zero cost abstractions are true. So this is textures iterate to vector, right? And then here we just give it the TIDs. That would be too easy. Just making one texture work again. Method not found. Oh, render aligned 346. Do we need to do a collect here? I'm never sure about the maps in Rust. Let's start from the bottom, right? So GL bind texture, okay. In material 192. This will become interesting, right? So we have the GL bind texture here. So if let's texture hardware ID, if we have a hardware ID, right? That is self dot texture hardware IDs dot get the zeroth entry, because we special case that, right? If we get that, in that case we used that, right? doing only channel 0 for now. And I'm gonna do bottom up now, because then I don't have to scroll through pages and pages of errors. Cannot cast reference. Okay, I have to deref this, which is fair. Not a field. Okay, fair enough. 113. Is actually anybody using this? Nope, nobody is using this, so let's... I hope nobody is using this. Okay, fair. Basically, this is a reference, so we have to deref that, which is fair. Expected, nothing found. Oh, yeah. R equal. Can I do or equals? Would be nicer to do this in place, but consider boring here. Well, I'd probably do it the other way around, right? Yeah. Method not found for slice. Oh, we need to collect that, right? We need to collect this. Zero cost abstractions, I hope. Method not found, yes, because this is collect. Cannot infer type. Oh, this is a string, right? Collect string. Probably it's a vector of string, right? Does it want the inner or the outer type? Yeah, it wants a collect vector of something, right? It should be able to infer the inner type. Missing key, MVP matrix, and texture name in line 37. Wait, what? Pretty sure this map here ends here. So why is it missing? Okay, let's start from the top. Missing fields in initializer. Missing fields. Key, MVP matrix, and texture name. Key, MVP matrix, and texture name. It's definitely there, right? What if we just do a string new here? Cannot infer type in render line 346, and it is absolutely correct because I didn't tell it. It could infer the type, it's just too lazy to infer the type, right? 2 errors. Pretty sure a totally hackpatch field by this name exists in material. Yes, because this is... Oh, can I access self here in the initializer? Let's pull this out, right? Let's pull this out just to be sure. Makes this more readable anyway. I'm not sure if I added a self here, I'm not getting the old version or something. Well, I shouldn't, right? Not sure about initialization order in Rust, to be honest. Renderer 346. Yes, that is correct. And then obviously here we want a semicolon now. And that collect probably will need a type. So we give it textures. Oh, okay, yeah, in 366 we pass a reference to the vector. Well, we could just pass the vector. Doesn't really matter either way. Value used after move, so value moved here in material line 50. We have the layer ID, we have the effect ID, we have the hardware IDs. And the reference here should be fine. A borrow. Yes, I know. Oh man, rewriting the interface. So here it wants the borrow. And I'm pretty sure there's a second borrow somewhere downstairs. So in theory, it should still be running. So it is still running. And the keys are much longer now, so the texture name is broken. Okay, what was the problem with the texture name here? What was the problem with the texture name? We said we take the textures, we iterate, we map it, we take a reference, we take a name and make a string out of that, and then we collect it and join it with a space. What was the problem here? Expected one of 7 possible tokens. Textures.iter. Oh, do I need to deref this first because it's a reference to a vector? I thought that was implicit. Now we got 2 errors. This is not a pointer type, this is a deref. Just dereferencing this. What the hell am I doing wrong? Folks, I think my neighbors are going cuckoo. I mean, we don't need that reference here, right? We do not need that reference here. We do not need that. Oh, let's just fix it in this one place and see if it solves it. Rust brain used up. So 2 to 4. 2 to 4. This doesn't need to be a reference. Yes. And 366 also doesn't need to be. I don't usually use all the map and collect stuff in Rust. I haven't used that a lot so far. One error. Why can't I iterate? Oh. But it was pointing at the dot, not at the colon, right? And then there's a missing arrow. What do you call them? Angled bracket? So everything's still working. And in theory, so we have a material with a cursor here. We have a coin material. We have a background material. Okay. Actually, we have 3 background materials, which is interesting. But all of them are probably empty. So that seems to be working. Still working. So what we actually want to do is so basically this here is wrong, right? This texture IDs here, well, this texture here is wrong. So for we had this, what was the variable called? Active textures, right? Where did I just go? So for I in 0 to max texture channels. And actually we skipped the first one because the first one is a default one, which we probably should clean up at some point, but for let t let if let some t, right, equals this gets the textures. So we have a non inside a non now, right? So this means there was one, right? So in this case, we say let t equals self.textureManager dot get I, right? And this will always work because either we get that one or the default one, right? else we say, well, we don't need to assign this, we can just return this. Say self.textureManager.get default, right? Let me say let t equals this. And for now, we just debug this t, right? I'm pretty sure I messed something up massively. Yeah, we're taking the whole renderer apart and putting it back together. So get default is not found in texture manager. So oh, there is no get default. So we just get the one at index 0, right? I just get the one at index 0 and line 350. I have a better idea to structure this, but I want to. So this might end up being none, right? Well, let's not unwrap this here, and then both are either, well, here we get 0, right? Probably this should be texture index. Well, and this is just unwrap or 0, right? And then we say let t equals exactly this, ti. So we probably want to extend the manager to do that internally, but for now, oh, um, yeah, all this is, that's why we cleaned it up, right? So we get the entry, or if it's non, a 0. Probably should just get rid of the non. You probably don't need that anymore. And yes, I meant to use self.activeTextures, and probably we want to move that into a helper. But if we move that into a helper, we have multiple mutable borrows. I would love to do this inside of a helper. Well, actually this. But this is fine. So maybe we move that into a helper once we get it working. Probably I just fixed the wrong one earlier. I want this multi-texture support to work. Oh, come on. Mutable borrows occurs here. What if? What if? We will get rid of this get active at some point, right? Because this array here includes channel 0, right? There's nothing special about channel 0. There is nothing special about channel 0. So we don't need the active management in the manager, right? Okay. So whenever we use the texture manager, right? When we register texture, okay, we register that, right? And if it's the first one, we set that active, and basically we say self dot active textures 0 is some index, right? So this basically is don't use anymore at all. Wherever we use this, we use a helper. So this is a loop, right? Basically we say for I in 0 to max texture channels, we say self dot textures push get let's do a TI for texture index is self dot active textures I do we want to do an unwrap or in here? I mean, this could just be. Let's use the same pattern, right? If we don't have one, we just use the first one, right? And here we just do it get ti. I'm wondering this self. These should be safe, right? And then here we just do the same. So we say here we say textures, just iterate over the channels and then push that in, right? But in this case, we just use the texture IDs out of that. We could just push the texture IDs, right? But let's split it like this. Then here, basically, we do the same again, and probably we want a helper. But here we actually need the textures, right? The material manager set active is fine. The use texture. Use texture is basically use texture in channel, right? There's no difference. Use texture is basically use texture in channel 0, right? So what if we just set self.use texture in channel name 0. Is this correct? Basically, our disable texture for channel check is broken now, right? And this check probably is obsolete. Ooh. Ugly one. So, what if you have multiple texture channels that share the same texture coordinates? We just use the matrix for channel 1, right? We just hope that we don't have that case. If we do multi-texturing, either the second channel doesn't use a texture or it has the same mapping. That is not true if you put it into an atlas in different places. I would just say to do out of scope multi-texturing with tesh chords for channel 1 or following is currently not supported. Basically, I mean, we don't do this, but we do texture index is active texture 0. This is the active texture, right? Active texture. I don't want to rewrite the whole bloody thing right now. Not today. This is basically unwrap or self texture manager get 0 unwrap, right? You probably want a self panicking get the first entry. And then this is just active texture AT, well, star AT MTX, right? Oof. Totally broke it probably. I mean, if this is the biggest of our problems, so be it. 162 index here should be a U16, right? Yes, that's fine. Then 226, it should be the opposite. As U size. Then probably 228. Why is textures an option? I don't like this. I mean, I'm about to write that wrapper. Three, five, one SU size. I mean, can't it just say if it's smaller than your size, it's totally fine? Three, seven, four is U size. I'm gonna rewrite this whole bloody thing. I know I'm skipping some errors right now. The problem is if I write a helper inside the texture manager, I'm getting the multiple mutable borrows situation all over again. So 353. It's saying it has an option. T is an option because we did not unwrap here. I would like to put that in a helper, but I can't. Mismatch types 376. This probably is totally broken. Why does this need to be mutable? Where do we say this needs to be mutable? Why is a get mutable? Why was it mutably borrowed? The get is... Mutable borrow occurs here. Why? Why is this a mutable borrow if I do a get on the manager? Oh, because I'm an idiot. Well, for those of you watching here, you already know that. Right. This will need some serious cleanup, but I will need to do that with a much fresher brain. So the nice thing now is, why do I have two? Why is it all cursor? Oh, fish die is the default, right? So maybe we should register, maybe the renderer should register a dummy texture with an empty name at the very beginning, because this is just the first texture registered, right? And then we actually see what we wanted to see. We see the background. This is actually the one we wanted to add. So maybe the renderer, maybe, just maybe, in its own setup, what it could do. Nope, we use the Mixel approach. Right, what it could do, it could just do this. Let's give it a strange name, right? We do have the system. We don't need the system for this technically. And let's say it's a 2x2 texture, right? So this is the first, and sure we have one texture. And now for everything, the second part should be the braces. And what did I miss? Oh yeah, it's not renderer, it's self. It is self. Talking to myself on a Friday night. So all the ones that don't actually have a second one use the dummy one. I'm wondering why shouldn't we have 4? What was the max textures? Oh, max channels is 2. So what if max channels is 4? That is the actual case, right? We don't support 4, we don't use 4 and need 4 right now, but let's support 4. Basically now we say, okay, we have 3 empty textures for the coin, for the background, and this is actually the real background. So this is fine. So the reason why we see this is because we switch the material on any setting change. So we might switch to material that we never use in that combination, but that's fine. So now on end frame, shall we do add support for multiple texture channels? I want one intermediate commit of this, because so we updated the to-do. The background stuff is fine, right? We add channel 1, we disable channel 1. In the renderer, we add support for more channels. We have active textures. Maybe this doesn't need to be an option. Maybe we could just say 0. Might be interesting for debugging. We don't use a texture manager set active anymore. We just put it all in the active texture. So we create a dummy texture, which is fine. In the begin frame, well, everywhere where we use the textures, so for the material new, we collect all the textures that are currently active, or use 0 as default. This is the same for the key calculation. This is the same for the switching. The use texture is obsolete because it's just a special case of channel. This to do, I'm not sure if we can remove the if completely. Let's see, and this is use texture in channel. It's fine. So if we don't find a texture with this name, well, tough luck. If we find it, we make it active, right? And when we render the quad with rotation, we actually check the active texture in a different way. Where's the old code here? Oh, we never committed that old code. Fine. The find index, we removed the find index is new. And in the iter is also new. So that's fine. The material now gets a vector of textures instead of a texture and calculates some stuff based on that. The key is a bit more complex. We removed the getter for the hardware ID because we will just need it in a minute, but let's fix that in the next step. And we just bind channel 0. So we could just iterate over the channels here, but add support for multiple currently 4 texture channels. Right? Rebase. Oh. Fetch. But there is no change on it. Uh-oh. I edited the README to contain the links to the stream and everything, and didn't reflect that before we started. So, I mean, all that's missing now is what we actually want, why we came here today, right? Is the background fragment shader. This has a texture 1 now, right? And what if we wanted to use texture 1 here, right? So we need to support texture 1. That's the whole reason why we do this, and we probably do the lookup differently, but I want to be able to use both. And this will currently not work. Let's change this. So let's say if otech chords dot x is, well, let's use y, is smaller than 0.5, and I probably need braces here. Then use this texture lookup, right? And you shouldn't do it in a shader, but this is for debugging. So I want screen half and half, right? And actually this is blue. Let's make the other one green-ish. So is the shader total okay? Because texture 1 was never bound, right? So it's using the right code, but this somehow is falling back to the wrong texture. But that's easy, right? So we have a bind texture, right? So for I in 0 to, well, let's say I t in self dot ooh we do not okay, we always have a hardware ID. So for an hardware ID in no, wrong line here. Hardware ID in self dot texture hardware IDs, right? Plus I, right? We activate the right channel, so man gl active texture, I think it's, oh nice. So select an active texture unit. So it starts at gl texture 0, and then we can just So when we bind the texture, if let sum, wait, self.hardwareIDs is a vector, right? Okay. So technically we could do it like this and only change the active texture unit. Probably we want to change that back just to be sure, right? Because clean up in case somebody else expects defaults. You could argue to do decide if we really clean up in case somebody else expects defaults, but this basically says and this is, well, it's just this, right? We don't use the get, so we get the I for the index because we want to iter enumerate. So we get the index plus the content. So that is one part. We still need to do this part, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So this is binding the texture to the active texture unit. Oh, come on. SU32. The usize handling in Rust is, I'm not a fan. So that's part of the problem. We bound the texture ID to the active texture unit, but we also need to bind the uniform, right? I mean, what if we say always use channel 1 for texture 1? And obviously in the program, I wonder what my neighbors are doing. It sounds like they're, what the sorry. It sounds like they're banging on the wall. And this is a step where I always forget something. I'm sure I forgot something. Oh! Okay, so we have both textures bound. Maybe we remove the strange coloring here. So now we have both textures bound, right? So now we somehow need to use this gray value as a lookup into this table, right? But that's easy, right? So let's say float float x equals the first texture lookup, right? This is our x. Let's say float y equals 0.5, somewhere in the middle, right? Let's, oops, we need a block here. We will clean this up. And then we make a vec2 tc that is basically a vec2 of x comma y, right? Y to be fixed. And then we just do a lookup in the second texture, just he said, and the second texture with these TCs, right? So it's we use the value in the first texture, and we just use the red value here And obviously something is wrong here. So what if we just use 0.5 for both? Smack in the middle of the texture, right? Did the shader compile fail? I need a command line parameter that says fail on. Um, texture 1 at location 4, so the status is 1. What am I doing wrong? Texture 1 TC. Just a quick check. Oh, maybe I need to assign the frag color at the end. That might help. Oh, this should give us a middle pixel of the other texture, which is kind of blue, which is fine. So if we use this now, we get mapping of the gradient, right? And we can change the position. So that was a pretty dark blue, and this is a pretty light blue. And if I say this is 0, I will get the pure blue. So this is just pure blue. And if I use, so if we just open the texture real quick, fish data background gradient. So basically, let's zoom in a bit. So the middle here is where we started, the darkish blue, then we set a quarter, which was here, light blue. This up here is pure blue, and this down here, I would say this is half. Oh, we have a measurement, right? We know that this is exactly 128. So what is this? 8. This is 75%, right? At 75%, we expect a gray value. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. Hmm? What is at 85%? Maybe. So that's where we get the black. Obviously, we don't want to control that in the shader. We want to control that externally, right? So we need another uniform. We need a uniform float. And here comes the thing. Right now in the program, we look up specific uniform names. Maybe we want generic uniforms, right? So let's call this face, right? So we just use face here. Thank you, Ziri. I didn't talk to you. Ziri triggering on face. That's something new. That is something new. So that means somehow, apart from the I mean, let's do the reverse thing, right? What do we want to do in the background RS? Let's say we have a face here, right? And that's a float. And let's say that float basically is Let's say self.face equals plus equals times the as f32 times 0.1, right? And then we say if face larger than 1.0, face minus equals 1.0, right? Just to have some animation. This needs to be more defined. And then basically in the render we say render, and this needs to be done last, right? So render set uniform float. We need the type face to self.face, right? That's how the user wants it. We just want, well, I don't want to call it uniform float. Let's call it set effect parameter, right? If it's a uniform, or let's call it set uniform, and we clean it up when we clean it up. So we all that always refers to the current effect, right? But it will need to be done in the material. Okay, we can do that. So what if the renderer? Oh, this is nice. This is nice. Let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. Source renderer uniform.rs, right? We go into renderer rs, and somewhere we have a use mod stu mod uniform. Then we have a pop use uniform as uniform, and then in uniform actually we have a derive debug pop enum uniform, and for now this is just a float, right? And the float has an f32. No, this should be uppercase. I'm wondering if it should just be f32, right? So now in the renderer, we could have uniforms. Yes, we don't have a way to unset them, but uniforms. And that could be a hash map. Hash map is actually nice. Hash map has hash map name to uniform, right? We need to make them copy and clone at some point, but let's say we have a hash map of uniforms, right? And then we say before the size, all of this will be refactored. All of this is version 1, get everything working, right? Version 1, get everything working, and then find the interfaces we want to keep and want to keep clean. Is my stream alive? Yes, my stream is alive. Sorry. Is my stream alive? That's something. So, but then we have the set uniform float, right? So we have a set tech matrix, and then we have a pop function set uniform float mute self f30 name str value f32, right? We could pass in a uniform here, but and all this does is self hash map insert name value, right? Well, almost. This is toOwned, and this is a uniform F32 of type value, right? So this works. Maybe we want an unset. In worst case, we just pass them through to shaders who don't know what to do with them. Alright, so this does nothing. Oh, I probably missed some initializations. So flow, yeah, nice try. Nice try. So we need to wrap this up. This was too much cognitive load today. And this obviously is UC dot know when to stop. Self hash map insert. I mean, I'm not even sure what I was thinking. Uniforms, right? And then the initialization for the face is missing, which is fair. So let's say face is 0.0, right? Mm. Oh, obviously this doesn't need to be a reference because it's a simple plain old data type like we would say in C++. So we got the uniform from the entity all the way into the renderer, right? So here's the problem. Here's the problem. We could say we have globally unique uniform names, right? So let's say we could just say in the end render we set for every material all the uniforms, right? But that would mean if somebody else used face, we would be in trouble. But that would also mean we have shared uniforms. So the other option would be that the set uniform float would not insert it into self, but tell the active material. I prefer the active material one, to be honest. I mean, is it a local uniform or a global uniform? So I prefer local uniforms, right? And technically, so here's the problem. If we decide to change a uniform, we need to change the material. This all doesn't matter for our case. In this game, we don't have that case, and there's probably not a single game that has this case that we will do with this framework. So I don't want to go down the road of technically we don't need to switch the material on all of these. Right now we switch the material on all of each of these calls, right? We could just say, hey, here we say now make sure we have the material, right? And this could be, we could have a config that has all of these settings and a configuration block for that material, and then we say use the material that matches this configuration block. And I lean strongly to actually do that. But again, feature creep, select active material where configuration, right? So I just say, hey, I don't want you to use this, I just want you to use this whole thing. Just use the material for this, and then everything following will use that. And that's the better pattern, but that's so much overkill for this that I'm not even gonna go there. Right? We're not going there. We're just not going there. So for now, we say, actually, we remove the uniforms from the renderer and put them in the material, right? So we cheat a tiny bit. STU uniform. And we say, okay, we do have uniforms and they are not part of the key, right? So we have uniforms, which are a hash map of string, comma, uniform, right? And they stay valid forever. And then basically here we have the uniforms hash map new. And then we have a set uniform. Well, we have a set. In this case here, we don't need the abstraction, right? So we have an MVP matrix technically is a uniform already. So pop fn set uniform mutable self name string value uniform, right? Then we say self.ins uniforms insert name to owned value to owned, right? And then here we say, okay, in this case, we just this is a hack, right? We say get active material. We get the active material. Get mutable active material. I hope that we support that. And just say m dot set uniform, and this is without the float, and this is just name uniform f32 f32, right? And we want a reference here to avoid copies. I mean, in this case f32 is simple, but that might be a matrix of stuff. So we can remove the uniforms here again, which I like. Which is a tiny bit dangerous, but we know what we need for this program, so let's not over-engineer it, right? And I forgot like 3-5 places. Hash map not found. Correct. And probably hash map is not the best idea. We shouldn't be using a name. We should just use an enum or something, but can we just deref at this point and hope that this will copy? If we implemented well, it's an enum, so copy should be fine, right? Not a value. Very well. Very well. This is not a value because the mixing types and values. I think I'm done for today, right? I am done for today once this is done. Uniform does not implement copy. Yeah, we kind of knew that, right? We kind of knew that. Okay, so now we get the uniform all the way into the material, which unfortunately is still not good enough for us. Which is still not good enough for us. So what we need to do now, I mean, we do have the program, right? And the program on after the link gets standard uniform names, right? But we have no way of finding specific uniform names, right? So what we need is, and actually I'm gonna use the uniforms we just introduced here. That's fine. So what we need to do is a public function that says look up uniform, right? And that's a mutable self. And that has, well, we don't need the optimization, so let the optimization out of this, but this basically has a name, right? This has a name. And this will return an option I32, right? Because that's the location. So we could use our internal uniform lookup thingy, or we could just use the code, right? So this is unsafe. This is unsafe, and basically we say let L equal GL get uniform location for self.program ID name as pointer, and then the s star const underscore, I put a to do use cache, but basically if L not equals -1, we return some L, else we return none, right? Else we return none. So what the material now can do, it's going through all uniforms anyway, right? It could just do a, once we cache, that's why we do it before, we do a self dot effect dot program look up uniform and then the uniform name, right? So for you in self dot uniforms. I think they're killing somebody next door, right? We iterate over all of them. And then we say let uniform name equals, well, basically this is key value, right? This is uniform name, uniform. This is name and value, right? So if let some location equals else print line warning location of not found in not found. Oh, let's do a full debug print here. So this is name and this is effect, right? So this is a not found case. So if I say let n equal not found. We should hit that, right? We should hit that all the time. I need a break. Almost. Yes, if we rename it, we have to rename it. All the places. Oh, Eric, happy you. I can... Feels like this wall is coming down or something. Cannot borrow any reference is mutable. Cannot borrow as mutable. What? What? Nobody said... Oh. The lookup uniform is... So the program here is mutable, right? So where does the effect come from? Well, the effect is mutable. So what can't you borrow here? What's your problem? Cannot borrow data in a reference as mutable. Cannot borrow as mutable. Nobody said... This is my bad Rust, right? This is just me. This is just me. I miss... okay. I know what I did wrong, but... Cannot borrow as mutable. Borrow data in a reference as mutable. So the effect is mutable, right? So it's not talking about the effect here. Well, but it's... Oh. Oh wait, we're here. We're here. Cannot borrow as mutable. Why? Why not? Why not? Hmm. Stupid bots. I mean, it's not the L. Cannot borrow effect as... Cannot borrow effect or program as mutable. So... Oh, okay. Okay. So effect fs has a program and we cannot borrow this as mutable. I mean, right now we don't need that as mutable because I wanted this to be mutable because I wanted it to update its cache, but we don't need that. So I wanted to do the pickups after the background. The background was supposed to be, so location not found is not found, right? But if we use the real name here, it should say print line location for is, let me just do n comma l, right? So we should never get the warning and get the location once per frame. So location for face is 5, right? That's what we wanted. So we do have a location, so all we have to do now is okay. So we have to match v, and if it's a uniform f32 value, then we do this. And yes, we could consider abstracting the GL stuff away, and otherwise we just say to do uniform type not supported. Right, and we just do v here, and this will never trigger because right now we only have this one. But in this case, basically we are in an unsafe block. We could just do GL uniform F. Is it just F? GL bindings GL, oh wait, GL uniform form F FV, it's 1F. Okay, uniform 1F, and it gets the location, which probably is a reference, I guess, and the value is V. So in theory, we should be passing the face through to the shader now. Almost. So our references were exactly the wrong way around. I need to refresh my drink after that. My water to be exact. Oh, look. And you can see it's getting darker, darker, darker. It's getting black. It's going into the... So obviously that's not the correct color behavior, but that is, we pass the face through from the background, which is nice. Yeah, I already blocked QMT. It's bots. So all we need to do now is, and I had hoped that this could add it to the cached lookup and then can just say, okay, let's check if it's in here, and if it's not in here, just do the lookup, but in the end it's not that costly. So I'm fine for that. So now, and we need to, we're gonna steal the table from the background from, so basically this is the transition points, right? Where's the, so we have a min offset. So this is, where does this start? Where does this face start? We have the max offset. Where does this face end? We have a speed inside of this, and we have a swing variable, right? So if it swings, it bounces back and forward. Oh, actually, I'm wondering if we implement that differently. Where's the swing? The swing is not used, right? Nice. Basically, this defines the ranges in the singamaboo. and then we need a state, right? So in the update, we need to know which state we're in, right? Fade it out, fade it in, fade it out, and so I'm sure I over-engineered this last time. So we have this calc, and this is just called in the update, right? Last pos and new pos, and then it does a state transition between the two positions. All we want basically is this is a current phase, right? And then we have a phase target. So we don't need to store the target, right? So in the update, let target phase equal, and that's the calculation here, right? That's this here. We figure out which state we're in. Actually, we're gonna make that a helper. So what if function calc phase for current state, right? So this gives us an F32. And let's say we just want to go to 0.5 for now. So this is self.calc phase for current state, right? And then all we want to do is we want to lerp. So lerp. Hope the first hit is a good one. It's classic linear interpolation, right? We want a linear interpolation between these two values. So basically we say self.phase is now 95% the, let's say let O equals or S equals 0.95, right? So this is basically S times self.phase plus 1, 1 minus S times target phase, right? Technically we should use use time step, but this just says, hey, stay roughly where you are, but get closer. Okay, how do I explain this better? Lerp with speed. Yeah, Unity. I don't. Okay, maybe Godot is. So. So the thing is, we need the normalized value here, right? So, but let's not overcomplicate. So this is step 1, right? We have the target phase and we somehow get there. And right now our target phase is hard-coded. Method not found in mute background. Wait, it's here, right? It's right here. No method. Because we cannot do it in the implementation for the entity, we have to do it in the implementation for the background. yes, the update function is triggered every frame, so currently at max frame rate. Actually, let's debug the target face and the face, right? So and self.face, just so we see what we're doing. The linear interpolation with constant speed will end up in a helper function anyway. So we are slowly going to 0.5. Yeah, that probably was a bit fast. Right, so let's make this a bit slower. I mean, if we go 1% towards it every frame, that's probably still too much. We want to go there pretty fast, so it's going there. So it needs to be fast enough that once it caught up, it follows. So it's going to 0.5. It is going to 0.5 at some point. It is going to 0.5 at some point. So this is too slow now. This is clearly too slow. So make, oh, it was a tenth of a percent. It wasn't 1%, it was 1/10 of a percent. This is tweaking. I want the basic rendering done, and then we can do a polishing round some other time. So this is better, right? It gets there near it in like 3 seconds, and obviously it slows down. It's kind of dampened. But what really is important is this face thing, right? So, right, we have the face down here, the info, but we actually need it up here. So what we need now is a face, right? So state. So we have an enum state, right? And there's 3 states. There's faded out, there's faded in, there's black, and there is faded out and, right? So I'm gonna add a second helper. I'm gonna say function face settings for current state, right? Too lazy to do a lookup table, and that is one F32 for beginning, one F32 for end. I don't think we're using the speed, do we? This is just using the min offset and the max offset, so the speed was never used, and the ping pong also was never used. So this is just min and max, right? And then we say, okay, match self dot state, and state to be actually, maybe we should state, and default state is state faded out. Oh, come on, faded out. And that's just our table, right? So this is state faded out, results in 0.0 and 0.0, right? And then we repeat that for all the states. So this is faded in. This is a swing state. This is a black, basically the dead state. And this is a faded out end, right? and this is 16 of 128, so we just measured the pixels to 96 of 128, and this is 112 of 128, and this is 112 of 128. This is basically fixed position, right? And this is basically the last pixel in the last row in the texture. Yeah, we could probably we could have not used the table and just implemented the calculation for each state. True. So let min comma max equal self face settings for current state. So we have the min and max now, and now we just copy the behavior from, so basically delta O, and then it's a remake, right? So basically this is the C++ code. So we say let delta equal max minus min, and then the phase basically is 0.5 plus 0.5 times the sinus of time. So we need the time. Not a fan that we need the time here, but let's do that. That means in the update, let's get it to work and then let's worry about fixing it, right? So self.time plus equals oik dot time. Where's my auto completion SF32 to do wrap for precision? Let's ignore that for today. Basically this is half speed times self.time. We get the sinus of that. Then we multiply that by delta and add the minimum, right? So we get a constant sinus of forever with the come on, with the amplitude of this. This is the amplitude, that's the max min, and then we shift that, right? So that should be fine. So right now our target phase will always be 0, which is not what we want. Oh, unknown field time. What did I do? Yeah, you could just stop when I do that and not throw arrows that are just... I'm gonna refill my water. Not the moment to realize you're out of water. So calc phase for current state. Oh, semicolon. So that means we just calculate the position we want to be for in this state and just go there, right? And the state now is go to 0. Well, why is it going to 0.5? What did I... Why is the target phase 0.5? What's our state? State is faded out, right? State is faded out. If state is faded out, we get 0, 0. So 0, 0 means delta 0. Oh, I killed the braces here. That's better. We want to offset before multiplying by the delta, and not after. So this should result in a phase 0, right? Our phase is just 0. This is state faded out. So how do we... Let's actually cheat. No, actually we have that in the Fiiish app, right? So in the update we say if book. Do we have the book in the OIC? Do we have the book in the OIC? Let's get the book, but we get the OIC. And the OIC does not have the keys. So we do it in the game, right? We just cheat a little here. This is just temporary. Oh, we don't have the background in the game anymore, but we can get it, right? So pop function go to next state. And that's basically oh. So this is state faded in. This is state black. This is a hack, so we will never use this. So state faded out and this is state faded out, right? And then we just say self.state equals. I hope that works. Yeah, it doesn't for obvious reasons, because stated. It's state, not stated. It's state, not stated. Obviously, we still need to hook that up. So what we can do in the game is... Okay, we're cheating here a bit, right? We're cheating here a bit. We say if e dot name equals background hack for testing background state transitions. These will come from the game logic at some point, but so if book was key pressed, B for background. If B was pressed, then we say, oh, ooh, how do we upcast this? We can't, right? We can't. Okay, we do it differently. We say if, where's our if? That's better. We don't do this. We do this and this. Running out of juice, and we just entered the last hour. So we said in this case our entity update context. Where's our oik? Oh, we need to do this after. Basically, oik dot set change background state. Change background state. Right. Obviously the entity update. We're cheating here a bit. Oh, a bit is good. Change background status bool. Change background status false, and then we have pop fn change background state mute self dot change background state is true, right? Right. If we press B, we set this in the entity update context. Hey, read. This time you still have time. It's not too late yet. I'm running out of juice, but okay. Obviously, we still have to hook that up in the actually, let me call this do change background state. Oh, we call it enable do as do. So we still need a getter for this, right? Pop function change background state. Self returns a bool, which is just self that change background state. Python. Why? Why? So now we can go into the background, and in the update we can actually say, and this is a hack, if oik dot change background state, then we say self dot go to next state, right? We're kind of hacking together the game logic that is not there yet because we only focus on the rendering part. So whenever I press B now, it should go to the next state. So from the faded in to the, that was a bit fast, and now it's doing the animation between the lowest value, which is like 0.16, and the highest value, which is 0.72. So you see the light dark transition here in the background. If I press B again, it goes to the dead state. If I press B again, it goes to the faded out state. If I press B again, it goes back to the faded in state, right? Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. What state is it in right now? Okay, this is the faded. Oh, oh, oh. So we're in the faded in state, so playing. We're in the dead state, we're in the faded out, which is the very end. So you can see it's the very end. It's almost the last row of pixels. If I press B now, it will go all the way back, but it should just wrap around, right? So what I will do is in the go to next state, we have a side effect here, which is basically self dot phase equals 0.0, right? How did this ever work in the old version? So we calculate position, okay. Oh, we had two states that we blended into each other. We calculated the position for the old state and for the new state and had to transition progress, which probably, so we overlaid two versions, which probably was the better way to handle this. Python for a bit of fun. Free BDSM, free BSD. Not implemented yet. User error. What? Wait, what? 441? Wait, what? User error? I mean, that's the case where we don't find the texture, right? That's the texture not found. User error. And how did we just hit that? How did we just hit that? Timing in startup logic? Race condition? Well, you should well do whatever you like. I mean, if you want to learn coding, it doesn't really matter which language, but I wouldn't call Python fun from my point of view. So fade in, go to black, go to the reset, and then we just wrap around, we stay at 0, and then we fade in again and do the animation. Fade out, fade it out, fade in, animate, go to black, fade out, fade back in, and I can just hammer the keys and it will still be smooth because we do that lerping. Yes, if I go too fast from black to fade it in, it will jump a bit, so that jump here, but the game will never do that. That will be the animation where the dialogue comes up, so I'm okay with that. I mean, the nice thing is it never gets stuck in a broken state. It sometimes jumps over states, but that is okay. No, I think that's our background. I think that actually is our background for now. So funny how this feels so fast and this with the same speed feels slower, right? That. Oh, okay. Let's play. We're playing. The background fades in, right? We die. Oh, oh, oh. Add support for 0 digits. Add support for 0 digits. In animated texture line 75. Where was this called from? From player render. I should have run a debug build. So the animated texture was can be. I'm not sure if I can reproduce this. Thanks for being here. It's been a long day. I won't be here forever. So, but all the code is on GitHub. So if you want to follow along. So I said I'm playing and I hit B to get the background and then I pressed K. Oh, when I kill the fish, something breaks. When I kill the fish, something breaks. We didn't do that in a long time. So in animated texture RS line 63. Append number with digits, okay. And then it says basically, hey, the digits was 0, right? Who set up, I mean, this is number of digits, right? Where's the append number with digits? So who said the number of digits is 0? The number of digits is set here, right? So it's here, it's 1, 2, third parameter. Oh, did we mess that up when we... So it's a third parameter of the animated texture, right? 1. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, number of digits is 2 and first frame is 0. Ouch. I hope it helps. I'm happy when this game is done and I can clean up the whole render framework and then... Oh, now I messed it up. Texture not found for coin 0. Because nobody loaded coin 0 yet, right? Who's trying to run coin 0? Oh. How? Wait. Coin underscore 2 1, right? Who's trying to run coin 0? Nobody. This is loading. Who's trying to load coin 0 now suddenly? Texture not found for coin 0. Who's calling coin 0? It's animated texture, right? It's this one here. Animated texture in line 64 somehow comes to the conclusion that we want coin 0, right? So current frame is first frame. So in the coin, do we set up the... And why is this only triggering now? In the setup, we have number of digits is 2, first frame is 1, right? But to get coin 0, first frame somehow needs to be... How? And is this reproducible? Not the day-to-day. Is this timing related? So I can swim, which changes the background. Right? I kill the fish, which changes the background. We are dead in the black space. We change the background because we're respawning. We change the background. We change the background and we start swimming. And then we change the background when we die and it goes black. Then we change the background on respawn. So I'm a bit worried about that crash we just had. This might be related to us rendering before the setup is done. So maybe we should not run the render. So we can swim, background, kill, black, fade, 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 start, background, kill. So this all looks good, right? So the self face for the background looks good. There's a few hacks in there. There is a few hacks in there. Hack needs game logic first, which we don't have, right? So cargo check. Cargo check. And I wanted to look into the to-do. Actually say, okay, this is done with the this is go actually reflect channel 1 and following the material key is actually done, right? Add multi-texture support is done. This is not done, but this is done, right? This is done. So, okay. Is this the background fragment shader which does the indirect lookup? I let the temporaries, the commented out info one commit as usual. Can you? Okay, this is the to-do which we just updated. This is the background. We added the fade states and the face lookup table for reference, and the old code for reference, which we will delete soon. We have the wrapping problem, but since we don't care at the moment, and we set the uniform for the second channel. The player, we fixed the typo for the die, so okay. Fix crash for dying fish, dying player. Yes. We add the hack for the background state change. We add the hack for the background stage change. This is interesting. We add uniform support. Add uniform support per material. Needs to be decided if you want it this way. That's nice. Animated texture, yeah, that's can stay in. Material, That's the uniform support per material, right? Could need some optimization, but add support for texture on in material. And the program now can look up uniforms. Add explicit uniform look up to material. Right, so that's that. What's untracked? Oh, and obviously add the uniform. Only F32 for now, but that's good. Commit this, rebase this, push this. And technically we still have 40 minutes left, so I would like to take a 10-minute break. And then we see if we probably then we do another 10 minutes, 30 minutes of working on the pickups, right? So I'm gonna start. Actually, I want to check the Windows version as usual. Yoo-hoo. It should just work. It's hitting the coin 0. Why is it hitting the coin 0? And it's hitting the coin 0 constantly. So I think actually it's... Hey Halsey, I was just about to go on a break. I was just about to go on a break. So I actually think we have a timing issue because the Windows version constantly crashes. That won't make things easier. We think half beard or no beard. So I actually think what's happening, and this is shot in the dark, if I look at the Fiiish app, right? So if I look at the main, well, we do the run after the update, so I wonder if we have a race condition. I mean, it's renderer line 441, right? So this is the we want to use a texture in channel, and that is coin 0, and that texture is not found. Why do we use how could we ever use coin 0, right? The only place where we use coin is the config file, yes. This is commented out, so the only place where we use coin underscore is here, right? So that's an animated texture. Animated texture setup. Oh, so could it be, no, it can't be, because then it doesn't know that. I was just thinking that setup might not have been called before update is called or render is called, but then it wouldn't know that it's coin, right? So in animated texture, we set the prefix, we set the number of digits, we set the first frame, right? So we set the prefix, we set the number of digits, we set the first frame. How can, well, the question is how can current frame So if you get a coin 0 here, that means that that means that that the that's basically coming from if I look at the call stack, set rust backtrace equals 1. Yes, Windows, I know you don't know what you're doing. That's nothing new. Windows! Windows! Okay, yeah. I'm in a PowerShell, so maybe... I can't show you my Windows screen, sorry. So it crashes in render align 441. It comes from... So it crashes here with coin underscore 0, right? It comes from line 404. So that's the normal use texture. Then it came from animated texture line 65. So the generated name here somehow was coin 0, right? And the only way for this to be coin 0 is if current frame, if this number is 0, right? So we somehow got here to the RUs with current frame being 0. So I'm wondering if the update messed up the current frame. I am wondering if the animated texture update... Yeah, wrong screen, sorry. In step 1 I do enable that debug self, right? Ah, come on. So I'm just enabling this debug self and curse that all my windows, all my keys are wrong on Windows. Did I mention how much I dislike Windows? So I'm wondering if this update logic somehow sets current frame to 0. And the current frame, so if I debug this, the current frame is 0 in this case. So we increase current frame. We say if current frame is larger than first frame. So let's add a debug in the update, right? I don't want to have this bug in the code base over the weekend because I will forget. So in line 64, where's line 55 for coin? So we update that a few times. current frame 27, current frame 28, current frame 29. Wait for coin. Okay, current frame 29. Current frame 30, current frame 31. Current frame 0. After 31. So current frame is 31. And maybe I should have debugged the time step. But current frame is 31, right? Current frame is 31. Time in current frame is 0, but the time step might be big enough to push it. I'm adding a second debug here. Even if it's annoying, I'm adding a second debug in the while loop. Pretty sure there's something in that while loop here that somehow this logic was dodgy from the start, so okay. Okay, current frame is 30. Current frame is 31. And then current frame is 0. Wait, that's the fish, okay. Why can current frame be 0? So here current frame is 31 and then here current frame is suddenly 0. Without it getting through this line of code. How can that be? Are we running? We're running multi-threaded, right? Do we have a race condition here? It gets here, it never gets here. That should technically not be possible, right? Unless we have a second thread. And if we have a second thread, then all the bets are off, right? If we do have a second thread, then all the bets are off. Current 62. So here current frame is 31, right? Here current frame is still 31, and then it crashes with crashes here with current frame is 0. How in the world? I wish I could reproduce it here. It only happens on Windows. Who sets that to 0? So I think that is a nice cliffhanger because I'm not gonna find this. So between exiting here and entering here, which is basically to render somebody messes with this. So what I could do is I could go into the coin, and after the update, I debug self.animated texture, and when I enter the render, I do the same, right? So I just added a debug at the end of this and the beginning of this, so nobody should change my animated texture between these two places, right? So Coiner is line 57. That's my render, and who the I between this line of code and oh, it's a different coin. It's a different coin. We have multiple coins. So game.rs. Haha. Which coin is it? Okay. We have the animation offset, right? So let's debug self instead of self animated texture. I wish I could share this screen, but I can't. So we have more than one coin, right? So coin cannot be formatted. Yes, I know. Reminds me I have to install tab 9 on Windows, because typing without autocompletion, we're not going to do the pickups today. So if you're hanging out for the pickups, just go. So it's a coin with the animation offset 0. Ah. So for the coin, remember we have this animation offset, right? And the animation offset for the crashing coin is 0. And if the animation offset is 0 here, then we're setting the current frame in the animated texture to 0, right? And the set current frame, well, doesn't clip it into range, right? So if the first frame is 1 and we set it to 0, this will crash, right? So let's say if f is smaller than self first frame, to do clip into range, right? I'm just wondering why this doesn't crash on the Mac. Why does it crash only on Windows? I mean, it crashes 100% on Windows. So yeah, some idiot is trying to set frame to smaller than first frame. So in this case, could we just do, oh, sorry. Could we just say f plus equals self dot number of frames. Could we just, obviously we need, nope. Let mute f equal f, and then we say, hey, I typed on Windows for 5 minutes, you see, while f is smaller than first frame. Get it into range, right? And then we do while f is larger than self.firstFrame plus self.number of frames. Yes, this is just a modulo. F minus equals self. So if it's out of range, bring it in range, right? And then we say if f is smaller self.firstFrame or f is larger than self.firstFrame. Oh, actually larger than equal, right? To do, how did we get here? Because we shouldn't be able to get there, right? We should not be able to get there, in theory. The auto-completion didn't work. I'm not going to do pickups in 17 minutes. I'm just gonna fix this bug. So the to-do shouldn't trigger anymore. Ever. Okay. So clamp initial frame of animated texture into usable range. We could just clamp to the end, but commit rebase push, because I want to see if this works on Windows. Git stash, git fetch. That's why I'm happy that it's one repo and not two or multiple crates yet. Git rebase and cargo run. Did anybody ever look into why the debug build of image loading is so insanely slow? Okay, Windows version working again. Windows version working again, running smoothly. Great one. And the background animation is working. Have to talk about the speed potentially. The kill is working. I can change the background through all the cycles. The Windows version lags seriously when it debugs on the console, but that's a Windows problem, right? So that was a good fix. I had a very long day, but we got the nice background to work and added a lot of functionality to the renderer. So I'm happy with this. I am more than happy with this. This almost starts to look like a game, right? Ignore my texture atlas debug here, but let's see what we do. Well, Shader Showdown finals start in 20 minutes. I wanted to watch them anyway, so thanks for being here. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to check out the GitHub repo of this. I'll be back probably tomorrow. So until then, let's see if I can do this right this time. I'm gonna host revision party. Bye bye.